The main question here is what can we say it is an avant-garde animation film?
The avant-garde is when you make the middle class in the society to embrace and to believe in an idea that it doesn't come for itself, for the society.
Avant-garde is a historical notion. There are differences between art historians when the avant-garde actually ended. Some believe that the last avant-garde movement was surrealism that dissolved itself in 1938.
Avant-garde, in a way, has two meanings. It has the historically located one, which is nearly always a kind of art movements that are very much related to political and social movements. And avant-garde is just weird. You know, anything, same way as surreal is used as anything that is just a bit strange.
If it uses collage, I mean, Kurkren and changing images every frame, can we say this is an animation?
Many filmmakers, they don't even want to talk in kind of way to say, well, I do avant-garde films, I do experimental animation, I do they don't want to talk within the categories themselves. They just say, well, I'm an artist, or well, I'm a filmmaker, or I'm a video maker.
For me it's important, and not just to show the films, but to create the context and to try to understand why these people are making these films and why they don't decide to make narratives films, and they prefer to know the techniques of the celluloid or the cameras and try to put abstract images together just to suggest something instead of telling something.
For me, personally, I guess what matters is the experience of making it.
Of course, in Japan, there are a lot of so-called avant-garde film. People can judge its avant-garde by visual, but I think Yoji Kuri's film is not so avant-garde in the visual. But I want to choose a film in the context, at first in the context of Japanese independent animation, avant-gardeness in the Japanese independent animation.
I just want to say that for me the Japanese films are not avant-garde, they're social realism. From the Japanese point of view, they're avant-garde from the outsiders. But it's just like, the experimental film for me is like a very dirty world, because an artist or a filmmaker always has to experiment.
And I'm like really happy to say that with Animateka in the general competition program from the beginning, there was at least few of them put it in, so just to show to this general public that, I mean, this is also a part that it exists and is there and it has to be considered.
And avant-garde doesn't reach more than 30 people from the audience.
You know, film festivals, short film festivals, animation festivals, and I've never seen like this solid collection of, I guess what I would call it, more experimental films. I don't really know what avant-garde means. For me, it means like a film that's against something. So, but I mean, these films to me feel like they're for something, so I call them more experimental.
Your experimental is somebody else's easy. And, you know, there's been a long argument between... I mean, the interesting thing is, in this whole area of experimental, one, you seem to get a lot of very macho posturing. Who's the most absolute? You know, and there was a long-running dispute between one of the big sort of historians, specialists, programmers in avant-garde filmmaking, a guy called David Curtis, and William Moritz, who's another expert on visual music, and it centred precisely around Norman McLaren. And for the purists, Norman McLaren was almost like Disney. You know, it was fun. Audiences liked it. Precisely, it was also seen to be narrative. It was smuggling in, it was pretending to be avant-garde when actually it was precisely not doing what some people have seen as the definition of avant-garde, which is to provoke.
Zagreb audience is really a little bit more traditional, and because of the tradition of the Zagreb school there, they're used to watch, I mean, good animation, but classical in approach. but it's a general, like public, everywhere.
The animation audience in general.
Yes, yeah. They like to laugh. They have to have gags. They have to, no. But when stroboscopic noise was screened, like at least then I think that Herman and Marcel Jean actually was in the same selection committee. At least they like a discussion was born out of it. So like everybody was, this is not animation. Yes, it is. Why it's such a film, you know, to be presented in our great festival? How they dare to show it?
Yeah, I think you have to give people the time to get used to experimental cinema. You can't just say, well, go into the cinema and then now you know everything about experimental stuff. If I program, for instance, an experimental program or in general a program, I want to have people to see it. And I think the job of a curator and a programmer is really to find a language to define what you are trying to show, to communicate with people, to give people something like where they can say, okay, it might be interesting for me. And I think this is one of the biggest misunderstandings probably in the field of experimental film. Yeah, we don't have to talk about these films because they stand on their own. They are there and you have to accept them.
But by this you were kind of like at least giving a chance or like give them, because otherwise if they would have to choose, because also here in the Cinematheque probably there will be like 20, 10, 15, 35 people, the one that are really interested, but the general public usually will not come because they are afraid that they will get bored, that this will be like impossible to watch, that anyway it's non-narrative, so what's the heck, why should we watch this, no?
I mean, for me the real value of these films is I guess it is an experience. I mean, a lot of these films were meant to actually be experienced. They're not, it's not like a narrative film where you kind of walk away with the film up here and you can say, yeah, the film was about this guy who met a girl and they fell in love and, you know, that kind of thing. It's like you walk away with the film kind of in your body.
So the avant-garde is when you make punch, impact, when you make the screen, the whole, the Zagreb Festival to boo and to react. This is avant-garde.
What happens is the films make them feel stupid. And there is a kind of, I don't understand this, and you get annoyed. And nobody likes to be made to feel stupid, so they hate the films. But what I have found sometimes is that if you can actually kind of do a programme which is not just one film after another, where you can actually talk a little bit in between the films, and you can give people some keys. This is what they, you know, thought they were doing, or this is why they were going that way. Not necessarily to say, you know, what the film is that what I've found is that then quite often audiences will have a little bit more patience, and it gives them permission to say, oh right, yeah, I get it, but I don't like it.